Alright, so this video we'll be going over Judges chapter 8. This is going to be part 3 of the Gideon story that we've been going through. And so in chapter 8, I'm not going to read the whole chapter word for word. Just going to go over it, a summary. And so in chapter 8, it says, the minute Ephraim said to Gideon that basically that he somehow insulted them and for not calling them out to help fight the Midianites, and which Gideon actually did ask for them to come out, and they did block the rivers so the Midianites could not escape when Gideon and his 300 men surrounded their camp, scared them, and chased them back to back to where they came from. Excuse me, I got my allergies have really been bothering me past couple of days, so it might sound a little more weird than normal. So Gideon tries to make the people who live in Ephraim a little better about themselves, and comparing how great the grapes that they grow is compared to no other. And if it wasn't for them, that they wouldn't be able to capture the princes of the Midianites of Oreb and Zeb, which in the previous chapter were killed. So Gideon, basically, you guys are, you guys have the best ground, and for you guys, wouldn't be able to capture the princes. And verse 3, the people of Ephraim calmed down a little bit. So beginning in verse 4. It says Gideon's 300 men crossed the Jordan. And it says they were exhausted, but yet they were still pursuing. So they've been pursuing these Midianites who were fleeing now. The Midianites have habitually been raiding the Israelites for several years now. They have now not only fought back, but now they're chasing them. And so verse 5 says they came to a area called Succoth, and Gideon tells the people that are there, says, please give us loaves of bread to the people who follow me, for they are exhausted, and I am pursuing Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian. So they already got rid of the princes, basically the sons of these kings, but now they're chasing the kings themselves and trying to capture them, trying to end all this raiding and war that they've been having. And so it says the officials of Succoth, the leaders of Succoth, it says, are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hand, that we should give you bread to your army? And so they said this sarcastically. They didn't think that they actually would be capable of capturing these kings. They probably weren't think they was capable of doing what they were doing and doing it successfully. And so it says, verse 7 says, so Gideon said, well then, when the Lord has given Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, I will flail your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and briars. So not only Gideon said, okay, don't help me, even though I'm the one getting rid of the people who have been raiding our land. But he said, when I come back, I want to take care of you too. And I'll explain that a little later in the video. But so again, in verse 8, it says, then he went up to Punel and spoke to them, and they answered the same way. And he said, when I come back, so Gideon said, when I take care of business first, I'll come back also to take care of you too. He says, when I come again in peace, I will break down this tower. So Peniel had basically a lookout tower, and something that they would be able to not only observe the land and see approaching enemy, but also used for defenses to fight from. So verse 10 says Zebah and Zalmunna were in Karkor with their army of about 15,000 men, And it says they started off with 120,000 men. So between the confusion that the Lord and Gideon caused among the camp, when Gideon surrounded him and 300 men surrounded the camp and had their torches and their trumpets, and they confused him, and the Lord confused the enemy, and they killed themselves. And now Gideon and his men and Ephraim, the people of Ephraim, came out and were able to kill him. So they did a lot of damage to the Midianites. Then we have the Midianites to start with 120,000 and be down to 15,000. And so just to go through a little more, bring how Gideon got there, which area he was going through. And he says he was able to capture the kings of Midian, and threw the rest of the army into a panic, and they were nowhere. They had no leaders now, so the ones that did survive, were ragged when they got back to Midian. So it says in verse 14 that they captured Gideon and his men captured a young man of Succoth, and questioned him. Whether this guy was maybe a shepherd boy, or just a regular traveling person or merchant. We don't know, but somehow they were able to capture this guy, and he knew enough about the city, the area of Succoth, to be useful. And they questioned him, and he wrote down for him the officials and elders of Succoth. That were 77 men, basically, that were in charge of Succoth. And he says, he came to the men of Succoth and said, "Hold, Zebah and Zalmunna, whom you taunted me, saying, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hand, that you should give bread to men who are exhausted?" And he took the elders of the city, and took the thorns of the wilderness and briars with them, and taught the men of Succoth a lesson. And he broke down the tower of Penuel, the second area he came to. They denied him also help. They helped him also, and he killed the men of the city. So these were Israelites that, the way it says, Midianites came from the east, and it raided the area where Gideon, what him and his tribes were from. So it came from east to west. So now Gideon is pushing the Midianites back east, but he's still going through Israelite territory. And so what Gideon is doing is, these were not Midianites who he was punishing, but these were Israelites. And the reason he was punishing these Israelites was not they did not fight back against the enemy. They allowed the enemy to come in, and they had a relationship with the enemy one way or another that, the Midianites did not bother them. They passed by him and kept going until they came across somebody they did not have agreement with. The agreement most likely was bribes and payments and whatever else. So the men of Succoth and the city of Succoth and Penuel, they allowed the enemy to come in. They invited it, basically, and said nothing, did nothing to get rid of these invaders. So now, from the beginning of Gideon's story, he himself was raised up, chose by God, and his first duty, is the first command God gave him was to tear down false idols of his father's household, which was his household. Tear down those false idols, and then he was able to whittle down the army until he had the best army, and the best army wasn't the biggest army, but it was the best army he had. And then from there, he was able to chase them out, get rid of the foreign enemy that was in his land. And when he finally got able to do that, he was next going to get rid of the disease, the sickness that was in his land itself. And got rid of them also. So he got rid of stuff that was in himself, in his household, got rid of the foreign enemy, and then got rid of the enemy that was within his land in a short amount of time. And each one of those was a stepping level to the next. So, and each one was harder because it was a deeper conflict that he had to pursue. Because I would say it probably would be easier that to fight the foreign enemy than fight the enemy within what you had yourself. So there now in verse 18 it goes on to talk about they were just the captured kings of the Midianites, Zebah and Zalmunna. And Gideon's talking to him. He said, "Where are the men whom you killed at Tabor?" And so he's asking them, like, "Do you know what you have done?" And now they're trying to please Gideon, saying, "As you are, so were they. Every one of them resembled the son of a king." Saying, "These guys were the best," and trying to appease them, making you're the best, and they were the best, and just who we are. And so and Gideon tells them, saying, "Those were my brothers, the sons of my mother. And as the Lord lives, if you have saved them alive, I will not kill you." But they did kill them. So Gideon is basically saying, "You killed them. They were my brothers, my relatives, my friends, my tribe. Now I'm going to kill you." So Gideon, we don't know if he was married at this time, but it says he does have a son. It says his son's name was Jether, his firstborn. Gideon says, "Kill and rise and kill them." So Gideon now is trying to teach the younger generation to get rid of the enemy also. But it says the young man was afraid and did not draw his sword. And we don't know how young he was, but he had not yet experienced any sort of battle or conflict. And then Zebah and Zalmunna said, basically begged Gideon, saying, "You yourself fall upon us, for as a man is, so is his strength." So they're basically saying, "Don't let a boy kill us, because it would be agonizing. It would not be a quick, clean kill. He does not how to kill. Excuse me, but you do. And if you're going to kill us, please make it clean and quick." And Gideon probably was trying to give his son, like I said, not only pass on the next generation of getting rid of the enemy, but also teach son how to kill. But his son did not. It says Gideon arose and killed them. So in verse 22, it goes on. Now the people of Israel want Gideon to rule over them as a king, and basically have dynasties. And Gideon, you're king, and you and your dynasty, and your son and your grandson will rule over us. And Gideon said, "No," he said, "I don't rule over you, and my son will not rule over you." And he said, "The Lord will rule over you." So Gideon is trying to keep the Israelites back on. The Lord is your leader, not I, not anyone. And but for some reason, he said, "I'm not going to be a ruler," but he wants to have basically a memorial to remind the Israelites what he did, and basically, I guess maybe help secure his family's legacy too. And what he wanted them to do is all the soldiers that were with him, to lay down their it says their earrings and their spoil, the stuff they took from the enemy, that would be into what they call ephod, which was they would take all the gold and melt down and forge it into basically a robe. And that robe would hang somewhere and remind the people of Gideon and what Gideon had done. And it says, verse 27, it was put in the city of Ophrah, and it said Israel whored after it, and it became a snare unto Gideon and his family. But he says, Midian was subdued before the people of Israel, and they raised their heads no more, and the land had a rest for 40 years in the days of Gideon. So even though Gideon did not want to be their leader, the people still saw him as a leader, and this ephod became almost a excuse me, idol itself for the people of Israel. And starting in verse 29 to the end of the chapter, so Gideon has 70 sons, and goes on to talk about one son was named Abimelech, which we will discuss about him later, next video. He was not even a son of a wife that he had, but he had a concubine that he had in the area of Shechem. And it says in verse 33, as Gideon died, the people of Israel turned again and whored after the Baals and made Baal-berith their god. Israel did not remember the Lord their God, who had delivered them from the hand of enemies on every side, and they did not show steadfast love to the family of Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, in return for all the good that he had done. So what Gideon had hoped to accomplish by keeping his family's legacy and keeping them safe and giving them well standing in the community, in the tribe, in the area, was unsuccessful. And when Gideon died, he did not, unfortunately, set up a good enough legacy, which happens in people in general, and is a constant up and down of the book of Judges itself. And his 70 sons is hard. I would say it's probably hard to, you think you're leaving a legacy by having 70 sons, but are you making them into men when you have that many? So, but Gideon was able to get rid of the enemy of his household, enemy of the land, and enemy within. And for 40 years, things were better than they were. So, and next video, we'll discuss the legacy that of Gideon and after his death. So, for anybody that does watch, I do appreciate it.